Story 18, The Harvest Fire. Every autumn, the Belladorn winery hosted its annual harvest party, a beloved tradition in the rolling hills of Sonoma. Locals and visitors gathered beneath the golden vines to toast the end of the season with mulled cider, roasted chestnuts, and laughter that drifted through the crisp autumn air. This year felt special. The weather had been kind, the grapes were rich with color, and the owners, Claire and Michael Belladorn, decided to hold the celebration inside the property's old barn, a 19th century relic built from rough-hewn oak and iron nails that had long outlasted the original vineyard. By the afternoon, the place looked like something from a painting. Strings of lanterns lined the winding trails, glowing softly against the mist. Pumpkins nestled between rows of vines, their orange skins dusted with dew. The scent of cider and cinnamon hung in the air, mingled with wood smoke from nearby fire pits. Tables were dressed in burlap and lace, and candles flickered in mason jars, their flames dancing in the breeze. Guests arrived in cozy sweaters and scarves, clustered around fire pits while laughing over glasses of mulled cider and estate wine. A string quartet played softly near the barn doors, the notes drifting upward into the beams like smoke. Inside, the old timbers creaked and whispered with the weight of the years. Claire Belladorn, who had spent the week organizing every detail, finally allowed herself a glass of red. Her husband Michael stood near the bar, chatting with the sommelier about next year's blend. Everything was perfect, better than she'd imagined. But in the far corner of the barn, half hidden behind a decorative display of hay bales and pumpkins, stood the fireplace. It was enormous, built of dark river stone and sealed long ago behind weathered boards. A heavy iron grate and rusted tools still sat before it. Spiderwebs hung from the mantel like gray lace. Someone had once painted over the mantel with faded whitewash, but traces of soot still seeped through. One of the older vineyard hands, Frank, had pulled Claire aside that morning when they were setting up. "You'll want to leave that sealed," he'd said. "Every time someone tried to use it, the smoke comes down instead of up, makes a smell that doesn't leave the room for days." She laughed it off at the time, but by 9 o'clock a fog had crept down from the hills, rolling across the vineyard like slow breath. Guests started drifting indoors from the fire pits, rubbing their hands and shivering as they gathered near the boarded fireplace. "Let's get a real fire going," someone said, "for atmosphere." Michael hesitated, glancing at Claire. She started to protest, but the chill had settled deep, and a damp wind was blowing through the open barn doors. Against her better judgment, she nodded. They pried the boards loose, dust and cobwebs drifting down like ash. The iron grate was cold and streaked with soot. Someone tossed in a few logs, another struck a match, and with a spark and a sigh, flames bloomed in the dark mouth of the fireplace. The crowd cheered softly. Warmth returned, the air golden again. For a few minutes, everything seemed perfect, until the temperature dropped all at once. A sudden gust of wind rushed through the barn, snuffing out half the candles and rattling the lanterns outside. The fire roared, flaring white for a moment before settling into an unnatural blue. Then came the smell, not wood smoke, but something sharp and metallic, like rain on old stone. "Did you feel that?" someone whispered. Outside, the lanterns flickered wildly in the fog, and inside, the fire began to roar louder, though no one fed it. The shadows it cast along the walls moved differently than they should have, not in rhythm with the flames, but slower, more deliberate. Then came the whispering. It started low, beneath the sound of the wind, a layered murmur, dozens of voices overlapping, too quiet to make out words, but too many to be imagination. Claire turned. Shadows flickered along the walls, stretching taller than they should have. Near the edge of the crowd, a figure stood watching, a woman in a long dress, face pale, eyes lost in shadow. Claire blinked, and the woman was gone. Whispers followed again, faint, low, impossible to tell if they came from within the barn or the wind outside. A soft rustling like fabric dragging across the floor. Guests huddled together, murmuring that maybe it was a draft, maybe the cider had gone to their heads. Claire looked around again and realized something else. There were more people in the barn than before, faces she didn't recognize. A man in an old-fashioned suit near the back, a young girl with braided hair sitting by the steps, staring at the fire with wide, unblinking eyes. "Michael," she whispered, "do you know them?" He shook his head no. Another gust of wind swept through, and the fire crackled violently. The girl by the steps vanished as if the shadows had swallowed her whole. The band had stopped playing. Even the crickets outside had gone silent. That was when someone said they should put the fire out. Buckets of water hissed against the logs. The smell lingered, damp earth and something faintly sweet, like decaying leaves. Within minutes, the fire was gone. So were the strangers. The party broke up soon after. People left quickly, their laughter uneasy, their eyes darting back toward the barn as they walked down the lantern-lit paths, boots crunching on the gravel path. By midnight, the barn was empty again. The fog pressed against the windows, and the last lanterns burned low. Claire and Michael stayed behind, cleaning in uneasy silence. When she went to set the final pumpkin back before the fireplace, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. A soot-marked handprint on the stone hearth, larger than any human hand she'd ever seen. The next morning, the barn was quiet. The fireplace was boarded again, tighter this time. Some nights, when the fog drifts low and the wind rolls through the vines, people say they can still smell wood smoke coming from the old barn at Belladorn. Others claim to see lanterns flickering inside long after the property has closed for the evening. Sometimes, if you walk past the vines after dark, you can hear laughter, faint, soft, echoing from inside. Not the laughter of the living, but of those who danced long ago beneath the same harvest moon.